Let's go.
Hi, my name is Elena from Cross Cultural Development, and this is Bending Culture Podcast. The show I started last year, no, 2 years ago. Yeah, time flies when you're having fun, right? The show I started a couple of years ago in order to help business people working internationally, managers who are leading multicultural teams, but also people who just come into connections with people coming from different countries, different cultures, to understand what are the differences and how we can make these differences not something that prevents us from communicating effectively, not something that prevents us from collaborating in an impactful way, not something that really stops us from understanding each other, how to help these people to use these cultural differences as the big diversity power that we actually been gifted from the development in the world. So when I started it, it was the idea of inviting people here, people from different areas of life, different areas of expertise, to share their knowledge and maybe their difficulties and challenges they experience working internationally. And that is the format, and this is the format how I'm using it, and I will be still doing that. But today I decided that I want to record this podcast episode by myself, because one of the things that I do in real life when I'm not with you on this podcast, I am consulting organizations who work with partners somewhere in the other part of the world, and organizations who have international employees. And I must say that there is not a single organization I've been talking to lately here in the Netherlands that doesn't have this multicultural workforce. And somehow some of them do understand that it brings extra profits, of course. It brings diversity of opinions, diversity of thoughts, brainstorming on the new creative way. But it also brings with it some misunderstandings, and some of these misunderstandings can be really, really huge. So when I work with these organizations, I'm looking at how we communicate, because we have difference in communication in the way that Dutch people, for example, they are very, very direct and explicit, and they say it like they mean it, the same as Americans. But you also have people from China or India that are getting shocked by this directness of communication, that they need to the communication in order to be effective for them. This communication should be more layered, less direct, less into your face. And that is one of the aspects. The second aspect we are talking about in these trainings, in this work, is the leadership. Because Netherlands, the country I live in, together with a couple of other countries like Sweden and Denmark, these are the countries who value egalitarian way of leadership. The leader is the first one to send people who are equals. So that means that the decisions are taken together, and it doesn't matter how much time it will take. We need to get everybody on board in order to proceed. At the same time, there are people 500 kilometers from where I live, people in Paris, who don't value this egalitarian leadership style that much, who like working in a more structured way, according to hierarchy of organization, where the boss is the boss and he or she are the ones who are taking the decision and bringing them down to the workflow. The third one we are talking about is the way of making people trust us. And that is, I think, in my eyes, is really, really the biggest challenge organization have. Because I think that we all want that the people who are working for us trust us as leaders and feel safe. Because when people feel safe, they feel seen, they feel understood, they feel appreciated, they stay. And we want to keep the best forces in among us, right, in our organizations. And then here it comes as so much in your face that what I see is that we are not used to trust people who are different from us. The difference in the way we communicate, the way we look at the leadership, the way we look at time, whatever, to respect. When people are different from us, somehow it takes us away from this statement, I don't know you and I trust you. And it makes it into the statement, I don't know you, so I don't trust you. And then when you're already behind on trust, it's very, very difficult to get into the situation when people are safe and seen and valued. I just finished a course or leadership course with the big international organization, and what really surprised me is how many biases, how many beliefs in our own, I wouldn't say superiority, but in our own correctness I see on the work floor. And these are younger generations of people, because I often hear the question, but Len, you talk about differences in culture, but the people today are so much more open to our lifestyle than people 20 years ago. And of course it is so. Of course it is. The differences are getting less and less, but it doesn't mean that they are not there anymore. Because of course people start to travel. We all travel and we all visited different cultures today, and we're doing it today much more than we did it 20 years ago, right? Doesn't matter which country you are from. Are you from Soviet Union like I was, where my parents never travel abroad, and here in the Netherlands, okay, you 20 years ago, you also went on vacation to France. So you would say that Dutch people would be more open to, let's say, French way of thinking. Of course, but it still doesn't take away what we really believe in our hearts about what's right, what is the correct way of talking to other people, to answering the questions, to building the relationships. And they say to me, okay, but the new generations are also different. So true as well. You know, they all watch the same TikToks films. They all are more mondial than my generation. But these people, young people, still go to schools where people my age are learning them, teaching them norms and values which are familiar to me. So if we take a school in Russia, still the teacher is not the one to be contradicted. And the Dutch school, from age of 4, the children are taught to ask questions, to make arguments against some postulate. So we still have these children who are watching the same TikToks films, but what happens in school and what happens at homes is still the same for the culture they are coming from. Does it make sense? You know, if you're not used to question the authority, it can be that the new generation is better in it, but it's still less good in it or less comfortable in this situation than the people from other country where questioning authority is the normal thing. You know, people in China, children in China, are brought up with the hugest respect to the parents, to the bosses, to the teachers. And people in Europe, especially Northern Europe, are brought up, children in Northern Europe are brought up with the idea, we need to have our own opinion. We need to question the norms, the things that they are telling us. And when you put somebody from China on the work floor here in the Netherlands, and it's almost impossible to say, okay, everybody is direct here, viewing their opinions so openly, so you must do it as well, because that is the right way. It's not the right way for this person in China, because his or her right way is to be respectful. And even if he or she is not in agreement, we cannot expect these people to jump into this discussion, to jump into the argument right away. We need to work on making these people trust us so that they can feel safe and know that they can view their opinion. And the fact that the neighbor next to them, right or left to them, their colleagues right or left, they are doing it, it still doesn't mean that they can do it like this. It will take some time, and they need to feel very, very safe in order to do that. And safety is a process. And telling people 1 or 2 times, do like me because my way is the best, is not going to work. If we want to have this culture of safety on the work floor, we need to be prepared that we are going to give these people time after time the opportunity to view their ideas. We need to show them with our own example that we can deal with the arguments, that it's not that we don't see it as disrespect, that we see it as an viewing of opinions, and we need to give it time. What I see very often, I work a lot with people coming from Eastern Europe, Central Europe, coming to work in the Netherlands, and I often hear about their very not cooperating way of working. They do cooperate, but they are like following. Nothing comes from them. There is no sense of responsibilities. There is no sense of self-leadership, that they just listen to what the boss is saying and they're following, and they're never arguing, and they always say yes, even if actually 2 minutes later they do no, but they still say yes. And how difficult it is to understand why the people do that. And the leaders, they always tell me, but I told him 20 times already, don't do that. You can always ask for me for help, or you can also always tell me that you didn't understand that, but it's not working. And then I stop. I said, okay, did you say really 20 times? Okay, maybe not 20. Okay, how many times? 5. That is the truth. That is the reality. We say it a couple of times, and when we see that the people are not doing the right thing according to us, we just put them in a box and say, okay, this one is stupid, this one is lazy, this one is not cooperative, this one is just here for the money. And we let them be in these boxes, and we forget, or we don't even realize. Maybe we don't forget, maybe you don't know what you don't know, right? So if you don't know that it is so different in the country where they're coming from, that saying it 3 times and even 30 times is maybe not enough. Sometimes we need to say something 300 times. We cannot expect ourselves go into the gym for an hour or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 and coming out with all this beautiful body, from a sportsman. We know that in order to change our bodies, we need to go to this gym day in after day and do some hard work. We do understand that, but we somehow don't understand that for these people who are brought up with total different values and understanding and viewing the world, changing the behavior is even more difficult than changing the body. And I understand the frustration that when you don't have that much time and you need to repeat saying things time after time and still see no results coming. I always think about Albert Einstein, and I would say, okay, but let's focus on what we can do. Maybe what we can do is, first of all, to realize that the change is not happening very easy. And the second is that it may be the way how we explain things. Maybe we need to change the way how we try to take these people, to change these people's behavior and try to figure out what would work so that you can reach them. And you can reach them only when they know they are safe. And safety comes in so many ways. And sometimes we don't even realize what safety on the workplace means. I was asking my students, what does it mean that your team is safe? And they say, okay, that they can come to me for help. I said, that is great. What more? That they can say no to me. Okay, do they do that? No. So what does it mean? That means that there is some level of unsafety within the team. And we can accept that and say, okay, that is how it is, because they are the ones who don't know how to communicate. Or we can say our culture within our team is not safe enough for everybody. And that means that we as leaders have some homework to do. We as leaders need to look at not how different and wrong they are, but what can we do what is in our power to change the situation so that people can trust us more, feel more safe, and stay longer in our organizations. It is such a long process, and we are today so much used to immediate gratifications. So we try something and it works, and we see the results and we are rewarded right away. That is why social media is so popular. Our brain looks at the likes and scrolls and looks at the situation and the pictures on our telephone, and we're getting the dopamine right away. We are right away rewarded for doing actually nothing but looking at our screens. So we somehow forget that creating a culture of safety, culture of respect, culture of self-leadership within organization, within your team, is a long process. And we are the ones, as leaders, we are the ones who are responsible for that. And as long as we gonna focus on how right are we and how wrong or not good they are, this situation will not change. We still will lose people. The retention will go very low. We will miss colleagues. We will miss people who can help us to build our organizations. And that is something we need to remember. We need to remember that, yes, there are individual differences, of course. And we need to look at people as people and not coming from this country or coming from this culture. We all are human beings with our quirks and stuff. But we don't need to forget that there is a big layer of cultural understandings. I don't want to say bias. It is bias. Some of it really bias. But I don't want to put it all in this negative part. It's part of our cultural beliefs that we are taking with us, even the new generations, even today, maybe less than 20 years ago, maybe this generation doing it much more mondial than the previous generation, of course, but there are still cultural differences, cultural peculiarities we are taking with us wherever we live, wherever we go. And the first step is to stop thinking that we are right and they are wrong. It's to understand that we all are different and it's okay. And then look at what will work within my team, what will fit within the culture of my company, and make it bigger. And what is not fitting, try to make it different. Try to make it more adjustable, more suitable for our organization, because we don't need to become something we are not. We have our values, we have our norms, we have the behavior that we want to encourage within the company, right? And some things are good, which we are taking for our culture, even the Dutch companies, for example. But something can be very, very good, which is coming from somewhere else. And if it works for us, it doesn't matter where it comes from, right? Yeah, that was a little bit me being philosophical after the last training I had, because I do hope my whole purpose of this podcast, of what I'm doing in my work, is to help people realize that it's not right or wrong way, that there is beauty in differences, and some things take time, really time, but it is on us. If we all stop putting our opinions and, how do you call it, valuing, I think valuing is the right word, put some value on the behavior, on the way people are brought up, how people communicate, how people interact, we can go much better in our multicultural teams. Now, that was it for today. I hope it made sense for you, because I wanted to touch down a little bit, because sometimes with my guests, we forget about going that deeper in why I'm doing that. Sometimes it's different vibe with guests. So that's what I wanted to talk with you about today. Over 3 weeks, I will be back with new episode of Bending Culture with a new, very interesting guest. So stay tuned and like the video, and your likes are very important. Then I know what topics you find interesting and what can I do better for you guys. Thank you very much. I see you in 3 weeks. Bye-bye.